Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GODAN webinar today. I would like to use this opportunity to welcome all of you who have joined our webinar today. And it is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers today who are talking about their experiences from the GODAN Action. So I'm really looking forward to today's webinar. So we will start with two speakers, Ike Holt and Chipo Missingni, and then we will have presentation from Boniface Akuku as well. So today's presentation is kind of a reflection on the capacity development activities that GODAN Action has been doing over the last few years. And those of you who have been working in GODAN will already have been in touch with some of the amazing work that GODAN Action colleagues have been doing through their various activities in capacity development, from the various MOOC programs, the face-to-face training, and they have had a huge impact in specifically for the capacity development activities. We are very grateful to all the activities that GODAN Action colleagues have been doing. So today is a really great opportunity for us to hear from the GODAN Action colleagues on some of their experiences that they are going to share with us. So let me first welcome two of our colleagues and presenters, Ike Holt and Chipo Missingni. Ike Holt is a freelance consultant in information management, and she's currently working for FAO in the UN, and she's involved in the Research for Life initiative, as well as in the GODAN Action project, and also for the Confederation of Open Access Repositories core project in Open Air Advanced project for international alignment of open repositories. Ike is a librarian by training with expertise in research management, licensing, open access, and open science. And she has worked in various projects in different aspects, and she provides capacity development activities, including conducting workshops, developing content, designing massive online open courses on access to information, open data management. She also represents Turkey country chapter in the Creative Commons Global Network. So welcome, Ike. And our next presenter is second presenter is Chipo Missingni, who is a project coordinator at the CTA, and since 2017, she has been working on GODAN Action project, managing work packages to strengthen the skills of data users, producers, and intermediaries to engage effectively with open data and maximizing its potential for impact in agriculture and nutrition sectors. Chipo has worked in ICT for development space for a long time, and she has also contributed for capacity development and knowledge management sector for nearly 9 years. In that time, Chipo worked in various programs in sub-Saharan Africa to enhance capacity among the research and education communities using the latest tools and advocate for the adoption of new technologies that drive development. Chipo has is also the chair of the RD's IGAT Capacity Development Working Group, and she's have been contributing a lot for the GODAN capacity development. So we are really happy to have the two presenters today with us. So now I would like to hand over to Chipo and Ike for presenting the presentation, and then we will come back to Boniface after that. So I will also remind all for participants, you have an opportunity to ask questions through the chat window later. So you can send the questions now, but we will answer at the end of the presentation. So handing over to Ike and Chipo now.
Thank you very much, Suchit. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you very much for taking the time today to join us as we share some of the progress that we've made in the capacity development track of the GODAN Action project. In this presentation, what I'll do is I'll give you an overview of the GODAN Action as a project, talk about some of the objectives of Work Package 3, which is the focal area looking at capacity development. We'll describe our training approaches and share some of the lessons, as well as some of the unanswered questions that we would like to still pursue and would like to work with in future phases of the project, and would also like to call upon you as the open data and agriculture community to take up some of our lessons and recommendations for potential future collaboration. Right. So the GODAN Action is a project that seeks to enable data users, producers, and intermediaries to engage effectively with open data in the agriculture and nutrition sector. Okay, so we see that there's a rapidly increasing availability of scientific, social, market data, and this really has a huge potential to improve the agriculture sector and address food security and as well as nutrition challenges. But to achieve this potential, we need that data can be accessed, can be shared by those who are in a position to realize its benefits. So with that in mind, this project was developed. We work as a consortium, which is led by Wagner University. And these are some of the logos of the implementing partners, and our funder is DFID. So GODAN Action, like I said, is looking at enabling effective use of open data. We work along three focal areas where we are looking to promote common data standards. We're looking at improving how we measure open data, and we're looking at strengthening data use and management skills. So for example, the first focal area is on standards. So by enhancing data standards and promoting best practice in data management, we aim to increase its usability and thereby the uptake of existing open data. The focal area 2, we say that by identifying and improving tools and methods for assessing the impact that open data can make, we can address some of the barriers that we have to innovation and some of the barriers that we face in investments in open data. And then the third focal area, which is the capacity development. So we say that if we build the skills of diverse open data users, we can support more effective use of the data and lead to us being able to create or support the development of solutions that can tackle all the challenges that we face in agriculture and nutrition. So these are the three focal areas that the project has been looking at, and we as a project, we work along three thematic topics. We chose these weather data, land data, and nutrition data, as we thought this is where we could see most impact, where we foresaw rather there being most impact amongst the shortlisted thematic topics. So looking at how weather data can be used how the opening up of weather data and the use of the available weather data can be used to create, for example, services and products that can impact the lives of smallholder farmers. We're looking at how can we support more land data sharing? How can we support the localization and contextualization of relevant land data sets to support agriculture? And then looking at nutrition, for example, how can data interoperability of nutrition data be improved so that we can have more data being shared with other stakeholders, such as the Global Nutrition Report Secretariat, who publish a very important report every year, but struggle with the quality of the data that they receive. So all those three focal areas, we're looking at these thematic topics, and we were looking at targeting stakeholders within these thematic areas and building their skills with the use of data, the sharing of data. So we took one of the models from UNDP and we adapted it for our purposes, where we started off with assessing the needs of open data users. So we did a survey of the GODAN community, the GODAN member community, and from there we were able to identify whom our stakeholders are and what gaps, what skills they would need and what gaps exist in currently existing material, currently existing training programs. And from there we were able to develop a capacity development action plan. And this led us to the development of training material and training courses. And so since 2016 is what we've been doing, and now 2019 we're looking more at measuring the impact or the outcomes of these activities. So So yeah, so from our needs assessment, we were able to determine what priority areas they are for capacity development, what sort of skills people felt they needed to improve their work or their studies, or to influence the sector in which they are working in. And these were identified as being, data management, data access, data quality, and data visualization. So from those findings, we were able to map out an action plan based off of resources that exist already, and bringing together experts from the open data community. We were able to develop an approach, several approaches rather, as well as supporting material, training material that we could use to reach these target audiences. So we thought that we would want to work to build the skills of researchers, intermediaries, and when we say intermediaries, we mean those who whose responsibility is to take the data and repackage it into information, into products, into services that are usable and actionable by users. So, for example, farmers, our other target groups of policymakers and extension workers. So we have been building upon what exists already. So in a lot of the countries where we've been working, there has been work that's been taking place already. So we wanted to build upon that and build upon the existing networks. So some of the approaches that, the approaches that we used were mainly face-to-face workshops, online learning, webinars, developing communities of practice, as well as developing a network of trainers which could support and ensure sustainability of the work that we had been doing. So what I'll do now is I'll ask Ilkay. Ilkay is my colleague from FAO. She's been introduced. They have been leading the work with the online learning. So she's going to tell us, what the experience has been with that, and what lessons and what the future is for the MOOC.
Yeah, thank you, Chipo. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Sushit, for the introduction as well. As Chipo explained, one of the capacity development approaches that we took was designing an e-learning course, a MOOC, on open data management in agriculture and nutrition. So when I say MOOC, MOOC is an abbreviation of Massive Open Online Courses, which is aimed at large participation with open content at the web platform, and in our case, free. So the main objective of the GODAN Action MOOC is to strengthen the capacity of the data producers and data consumers to manage and use open data in their disciplines, to make informed decisions, to take evidence-based actions. So the idea is to support individuals, organizations, and communities to feel confident in engaging with open data. So in the next slide, I would like to give you a little bit of a background how we actually created this course itself. This just actually goes back to 2017, and it was about like 10 months project before we go live with the MOOC itself. And as a methodology, we use FAO's approach in e-learning methodologies in designing this MOOC. And we started to work with preparing a white paper to provide a framework for a consultative workshop. The whole course is actually informed by this workshop, which was held in March in 2017, as you see on this actually timeline. This was quite a critical step in designing this course, because it really actually gathered all the wide range of subject experts and organizational representative to discuss and identify what needs to be covered in this course. So with the feedback from this consultative workshop, all this actual outcome went into a report in the following month. Then this actually this was taken into the consideration in designing this curriculum. So as you see, actually in this, in 2017, we spent the actually first quarter of the year designing the curriculum with the experts. Then over the summer, actually, we developed the content with the partners, we finalized the lessons, we actually set up the Moodle course platform, and we went live with the first edition in November 2017. And since then, throughout 2018, we had altogether actually 5 different editions of the course. Let me also tell you a bit more about, in the next slide, this whole actually curriculum design and the content development. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, all curriculum design and the content development was a complete joint effort of the Work Package 3 project partners, including Wageningen University and Research, CTA, FAO, the ODI, IDS, Land Portal, and GFAR. So you see the different, 5 main units, or you can also call it as modules of the course, in this image on this slide. And the whole course actually lasts about 4 weeks, consisting of these 5 units with 18 lessons. Also depends on how you actually customize it, and it is currently available in English. Perhaps when we are here, what I can just underline, if someone actually take this course, the expected, learning outcomes would be understanding the whole basic principles of the benefits of open data, be aware of economical and social value of open data, understand how and where to find it, and assess the data quality, and learning about techniques to analyze and visualize the open data, become familiar with data repositories and how to establish an open data repository yourself. Also learn how to develop strategies and open policies. It also addresses, how to identify and adapt, fair principles to the data. And perhaps lastly, you also get the basics of copyrights, database rights, and know how to assign an open license to the data. So if we come to this, a little bit about the instructional strategy, like other actually MOOCs, this is also a self-directed, self-paced with downloadable content and an online course. This gives a great flexibility to the participants in terms of how they allocate their time to study the course, because as you can imagine, during the day you might be actually working, and you may prefer to actually join the course or see the actual platform or study the lessons, at the weekends or in the evenings. So we use an open source solution Moodle as a platform for this course, and this is also provided by FAO. And the course is moderated by the course facilitators as well as the subject experts. I just would like to underline here this combination of techniques that we use, and our participants that from their feedback and our observations that they quite like the discussion forums, for instance. For each unit, they are provided with a discussion forum which they can actually post their questions or create some discussion environments, not only with the facilitators and subject experts, but also the rest of the participants. This is quite important in terms of actually networking with, you can imagine, like, thousands of other people from, different countries. And also this provides a quite interactive, environment. Perhaps, one last thing that I should pick up here, the online tutorials. We also try to set up, an online chat, hour with the participants per week, so that, people just instantly can ask their questions again, join in the discussions. So all of these things are also, available offline when they want to reach the content at their convenience time. So in my next slide, sorry, the typo actually is going through the slides. That's why I just make it clear that I'm on the next slide. So here you see the big picture of the whole, curriculum, including the lessons in each unit. Perhaps also I should mention that, especially in 2018, we did actually customize the content depending on the thematic topics. Chipo actually mentioned they are the weather and climate data, land data, and nutrition data. So perhaps I should also say that when I say customizing, this actually the main framework stays the same, but we actually changed examples and use cases within the the context, so that they are all relevant to these thematic topics. One important thing, again, when you see this, it's quite a comprehensive content, and addressing the topic in a broader sense, but it may not be easy to grasp everything at the same level by the participants in 4 weeks. And we observed, this is kind of like a reflection really, we observed that some of the topics have been found more challenging than the others across different editions of the course. With this, what I mean, for instance, let's take data quality. Participants had long discussions and many questions about how to trust data, where to find trustworthy data sources. They find some of the topics quite challenging than the others. Another example would be like data ownership, for example. As you can imagine, legislation actually changed from country to country or between the regions, and lots of actually discussions and questions this topic really takes. Perhaps one last example could also be the data interoperability. What we observed was some of the participants have been actually finding this technically very challenging, or maybe difficult to apply to their own cases or environments. Why this is important to us, all this observation, is this really helps us to improve the content in our actual next round of the editions, and also our instructional strategy, that I can say. So let's maybe give you some figures then in the next slide. There was a lot of interest, not only actually from the thematic topics that you will see in the next slide, but also our broader community. And we had, more than 4,400 participants from 148 countries, and mainly actually we really had, very, very positive feedback from most of our, participants. But of course, there are still, so much to improve, I'm sure. So in our next slide, I want to share with you who are these actually, the participants. If you look at the backgrounds, you will see that actually the largest participants, includes actually researchers and lecturers. On the right, actually the figures actually can tell you that, clearly. And this is, followed up with the intermediaries. Again, this is quite a large group with librarians, ICT workers and data journalists. So this is actually where all these participants coming from. So with the image, with the graphic on the left, what I would like to draw your attention to is, again, this course all as a whole, even though we started with these thematic topics, this really attracts the attention of the broader community, because you see that that then general open data, once the participation actually in that category is quite high compared to the other thematic topics. Perhaps I should also say that general open data defines here agricultural data as a general. So this is quite a good outcome, and we are happy about that. So one of the last things that I want to mention, that as you see, all these units and all these lessons are quite modular, and they are customizable, and you can actually adapt it for different purposes in your institutional trainings or in your workshops. And the content is also available publicly, and the CHIPO actually will be sharing the link at the end, and it is licensed under CC BY share alike license, so you can use it for your own purposes. Maybe the last thing we should mention here, that GODAN right now, especially we would like to take the way of organizational approach and organizational impact. In that sense, we are very open for any collaboration with you, if you like to use the content actually for any organizational change. While I'm finishing, I'm just finishing actually with some testimonials, just to give you some idea, how our participants think. Very positive again, but yeah, there's always some things to improve. Chipo, I can actually leave the floor to you back.
Thanks, Okay. Yes. Yeah. So to complement the online learning through the MOOCs, we also had various face-to-face events, face-to-face workshops in many countries across Africa and a bit of South America, and one event in the US. So anyway, we really were now targeting smaller groups of either policymakers, researchers, your journalists, and other types of intermediaries, and we would have more focused discussions on, and we would let through our local partners on the ground, we would design the workshop according to what they were interested in learning around open data. And so one of the recurring themes I was saying, which complements what was in the MOOC as well, was this issue around data ownership and issues. So it was really about us having discussions to allay the fears around opening up data, or at least addressing the concerns that a lot of people raise when it comes to open data issues. So it was very good that we had that face-to-face contact to discuss some of these, as well as talk about the issues of data quality and trust, and how we can improve access to local sources of data. So all in all, we managed to get 209 participants out of 8 workshops. The other approach that we've used is the communities of practice. So one of the objectives of GODAN Action was to work with existing communities of practitioners, so people who are involved in capacity development, that we get their input in the way we are running the project, get their validation, as well as allow them to also share their best practices, their lessons. So we do this through this working group where we are running this webinar, which is the GODAN Working Group on Capacity Development. And we've seen some good growth from 2017 having 200 or so members to now having over 1,500 members. So it's been really a good vehicle for us to scale up some of the lessons that are emerging within the open data sector across disciplines, but have agriculture experts sharing their insights as well. So I think we've had some good collaboration with the GODAN Secretariat in this initiative. So I mean, I would encourage those who are on the webinar who are not a member of the GODAN Working Group to join. That's the URL. Become a member. Share what is working on the ground where you are in terms of developing capacity for open data. Another community that we've also grown we've developed in the context of the project is the trainers network. So to ensure, sustainability, to ensure replication of the material, replication of workshops and so forth, we thought that the trainers network would be a good vehicle. And so we've managed to create a community of 94 members who really are working together to identify further opportunities for training, sharing online materials, as well as exchanging ideas of what works in the different regions and countries. We ran a mini grant program successfully last year, where we awarded 8 small grants to Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and Rwanda, where they were interested in working with their local communities to develop skills along the lines of weather, land, and nutrition data. So I think this is something that we need to build upon. We want to make sure that our material is in a format that's easy to use. So one of the activities that we'll be working on this year is to develop a training toolkit that you as a trainer can take and use very simply. Design a workshop, 1 day, 2 day, or 5 day workshop in French, in English. This is one of the goals, that we reach also the Francophone countries. And the other activity that we want is to profile the trainers, give them more visibility, so we know who they are, but they don't know each other, and not everyone within the GODAN membership, the wider GODAN membership, knows who the trainers are and what they can offer. So profiling them is one of the activities that we would like to do this year. Okay, so now I'll just share with you some of what we see as lessons and some recommendations from our work. Firstly, we've seen the importance of having a good needs assessment and having strong stakeholder engagement. So it was very important for us to ensure that we understand what the gaps are, what people understand by open data, and how they would want to use it, and what they see being the challenges. So doing that thorough background assessment was really important, and I would encourage that for any capacity development initiative, really you need to start with a good needs assessment and ensure that you have stakeholder engagement. The various stakeholders who are impacted by the project need to be consulted. So we found that it was very important for us to work with local partners who could help us take ownership of the activity, the initiative, and ensure that it can be sustained going forward, or at least can be followed up to assess for any impacts or outcomes or impacts. Then we saw that having a good mix of learning techniques was really important. We are all, you saw from Ilkay's map, we had participants from 148 countries. So we had a good reach across the globe. But I think what helped was having different approaches. So, for example, mixing face-to-face with the online learning was really important. But within the MOOC itself, we had ways of reaching. So people learn at different times, different speeds. So we had forum discussions, we had the tutorials, people could come back and watch, for example, recordings of videos, and then having just dedicated facilitators on hand to support through the question and answer was really good. And then we also experimented with blended learning, where we had a cohort that took part in the MOOC and also went on to have face-to-face engagement. And we saw that the approach worked well for those participants. So some of these lessons, we will be documenting them in a learning paper that we really analyze what works in what context and so forth. And then the last one really is about culture and context. I think the project helped. We appreciated the importance of culture and the importance of context. The cultures vary greatly from country to country and even from region to region in the same country. And context changes constantly. So with open data being relatively new, it's a concept that still a lot of people are trying to understand and see how practical it is for their environment. So now with things changing daily, like for example, legislature changes, governments change, it's important to be prepared and to be able to adapt and be flexible enough to change your approach depending on what's happening in the context. So as culture and context changes, you also adapt. So this is some of what we have seen in the project, and we have specific examples of which we would want to do write out something a bit more along that. When it comes to challenges, we can say that, okay, so what we've seen, maybe this challenges isn't really the right word here. I would call it more questions, things that we still feel that we want to look at, or at least look for more collaboration on how we can address some of these. Firstly, bridging global solutions to local problems. Okay, so we have ideas on how open data can help, and we've got cases from other parts of the world, particularly in the global north, of where open data is making a real difference. But there are areas where we see that still there's a lot of challenges on the ground. So people might get the skills on how to use data, or how to develop a data management plan or data management policy or strategy, but then there are other limitations that are on the ground that still need to be bridged. So how can we work more holistically to ensure that some of the local problems are also addressed as we are addressing the skills gap? Okay, so financial constraints, technical limitations, policy limitations are just examples of some of the local problems. We took a survey, just as a little snapshot of some of the data we get back from our follow-up surveys, where we ask, how people, or what challenges people face in applying the knowledge that they've gained from the courses. And so some of them come up, things like funding, lack of funding, lack of organizational support, no policy, there is no existing policy, so they face those roadblocks. So we need to ensure that, which leads to the second point, that how can we now ensure that learning is a process. Capacity development takes time, so we really need to ensure that learning continues beyond our MOOC, beyond our face-to-face events, that these champions whom we've identified in the trainers network continue to build upon this, and we get more support and more sponsors who can bridge that gap between the training and the desired outcome, which is improved performance and long-term impact. And then lastly, how do we measure the long-term impacts of capacity development? Okay, so what approaches can we use for M&E to be able to track, to say, and attribute some of the change? We don't want all the attribution, but at least we should be able to determine what open data really does on the ground. So how do we measure what impact capacity development for open data is making? So, I mean, these are questions that we want to attempt to answer ourselves, but it's also to the open data community, to us as capacity development practitioners here on this call, that we need to look at what approaches we can take to this and who needs to be involved. So anyway, to wrap up, this year, 2019, we're going to be looking at M&E. We want to look, we will be coming to you as, you know, some of our alumni who are here on the call, who watch this webinar. We will be following up with you. We're looking for stories of change. We're looking for you to complete our questionnaires. We want to have interviews. We want to interact with you to see what changes are happening. What do you notice changing within your own personal behavior or your attitude towards data, the use of data, the ethics of data. We want to see what innovations perhaps you have come up with. What new services do you see developing in your organization, or that you yourself have come up with? And do you see a culture change in terms of data-driven policy making? So there are so many changes that we are looking out for, and we will be customizing, you know, our questionnaires and our interviews with you. And no change is small. I mean, share your story with us. We really want to document it, and we want to highlight you and the action that's taking place on the ground. So this is some of the work that we will be doing this year. So if you want to use some of the resources that we have published, we've got the open data curriculum online. We've got training materials in the form of slides, activities, all online. We have the MOOC itself, which you can take at your own pace. We have a series of video recordings, which you can use as a learning resource or share with others. And then we also have the links to the communities of practice. If you want to join the GODAN working group on capacity development, come and share your best practice, come and share your lessons and your recommendations or opportunities. Join. And if you are a trainer, you know, definitely we want to hear from you, and we want to profile you. We want to give you the support. We want to give you materials to run your own events. So this is a call for you to look at these resources, look at what fits with you. How can we improve it? Do you need support in embedding it in your own curriculum? Talk to us. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, my friend Boniface, my friend and colleague Boniface, who works at KALRO. Suchith, you can do his introduction. He's going to talk about how, as KALRO, how they have been interacting with us, GODAN Action, and what improvements they have seen or what impact they have seen within their organization.
Thank you very much, Chipo. It is very insightful, Chipo and Ike. Very insightful and very impactful presentation you both made. I think, you know, you not only sharing the experiences from GODAN Action, but you also shared a lot of ideas for all of us to think about. And I'm sure in the presentations, after the presentation later, you know, we'll have some interesting questions coming up. So now, let me introduce our next speaker, Boniface Akuku. Welcome, Boniface. And Boniface, to introduce Boniface, you know, he's well known in the open data community. He's the director of the Information and Communication Technology at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, the KALRO. He's the chair of CODATA Agricultural Task Group on the Committee of Data for International Council of Science. Boniface has also worked as the Chief of Information Technology at the US Army Medical Research. He has wide expertise and experience in the ICT field, data science, big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and research informatics. Through the use of open data, He has brought transformative change by developing systems, virtual platforms, and innovations to increase access and utilization of agriculture research and weather data by farmers and other agriculture value chain stakeholders. In 2016, he was awarded as the Climate Information Prize winner for developing a platform that tackles climate change effects. And in 2019, he was awarded the Africa CIO of the Year award. So Boniface is we are very happy to have Boniface today with us to share his experiences on this. Welcome, Boniface.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah, I'm coming from a use case where I want to actually saw some of the experiences and the impact that the training we have undergone through and the support we have gone through has made, particularly in the context of Kenya. But I believe this apply across to other organizations as well. So I'll just take you through. Let me just disable my camera so that you don't have that. Okay. So I'll basically focus on the experiences and the impact. Now, okay. For some reason my screen doesn't want to move. Okay, it's moving now. So some of the topics we looked at, I would like to say at the beginning that we had two types of training. We had the face-to-face training. We also had the online training, where a number of researchers and participants participated. And we basically looked at some of the topics which I think has been presented by Chipo, looking at open data principle, how to use open data, make data open, sharing open data, and ISO licensing and intellectual property. We also focused on benefits. They say when you're dealing with policymakers, when you saw them opportunities, some of them get excited, but sometimes you also need to show them the risk. So looking at the open data benefits, we were able to demonstrate the risk of not opening data or making data open, as well as the benefits of making data open. So we covered this mostly in face-to-face training. Now I'll go straight to the impact and experience. So we had enhanced capacity building on open data. This promoted digitization and utilization of agricultural research data in Kenya. As you shall see in the next slides, how this has been made to happen. So one of the things we have experienced, and we can say is one of the very important impact, is that we are seeing research is being more data intensive, and this has led to demand-driven research. Whereas researchers now don't do research without demand. So from data, we are able to tell which areas are their demands, and therefore we engage our research or based on demand. And this has happened after we were able to use open data on a wider scale, and we are seeing more of data intensive research. We're also seeing increased use of digital approaches and ICT innovations and interventions, and this has led to timely access to information. We have actually developed 32 mobile applications where we have translated this content into user-friendly kind of formats, and we're also seeing a lot of online portals. We're also seeing a lot of more development of digital interfaces. This actually is trying to connect the researchers, the other actors, government, society, and the users, particularly farmers. For example, we have developed a platform called the Kenya Agricultural Observatory Platform, where we're using weather data to be able to predict weather forecast for the next 7 days. At the last, that we are able to also to show the last 7 days, the last 30 days, and we've seen a lot of interest from governments. We've seen a lot of interest from researchers and other users. Actually, this is attracting attention, and this only happened after we were able to use weather data combining with research data so that we are able to connect the different stakeholders. We also see demand for intelligence data products and services, where we are being told every day, can you predict what's happening using data? Can you discover new knowledge from data sets, trends, patterns, relationship? So we're also seeing demand in this area where many stakeholders are telling us we want to know whether there's a possibility of a disease outbreak, we want to know there's a possibility of a pest, we want to know the possibility of rain. We want to see the pattern for the last couple of years. We're able also to train over 100 staff. This is basically both on face-to-face and online. And as a result, researchers are now making the data freely available. And in the process, we have also digitized our data collection. And they're actually using the FAIR principle. That is, to digitize data, make sure that the data is findable, accessible, interpretable, and also reusable. Now, that's just an example of one of the mobile apps. As I said, there are 32. So if you go to Play Store and you type the word KALRO, you will see 32 mobile applications. But what have we done with this? We have actually picked the research data, the information, which actually we're calling content, and downscaled it to a usable format, where we're showing the varieties, we're showing the guidelines on how to use these varieties, the production management, disease and pest control, market information, economic analysis, inbuilt advisories, weather forecasts and observations, and we're actually making this on mobile applications, which make it accessible to everyone. So at a glance, those are just some of the online platforms. We have different platforms where we are putting the data sets, and we're also using analyzing the data. We're also reducing that data into different content. So on the left, you can see the Kenya Observatory platform, the website www.kop.co.ke, where you can basically go in and be able to get the weather forecast for the next 7 days. So we're also looking at how to conserve biodiversity, how to look at areas which are ASAL areas. So those are just some of the examples that I'm showing there. Now, we also established what we call the data value chain ecosystem. We established a framework, as Chipo shared in a presentation. Identification of the different data value chain actors is very important. So we're able to identify data producers. So in this case, we looked at the weather data. Who are the producers of weather data? So we're using on ground stations and also satellite, and also research data. So these are the data producers. So these are very key stakeholders because they generate important data sets, which we need. So their job is to generate data. And after they generate that data, through the training, we have been able to help them to make the data open. So it's one thing to generate the data, and another thing to make that data open. So we have been able to help them to make the data open through the capacity building. Now we also look at the data services. These are basically data intermediaries, where we're looking at actors who can take this data, knowledge management experts and ICT experts. What do you do with this data once it's been generated, it's been made open? What is it that we can do with it? So the concept here is to use different tools, particularly digital tools, and rework on this data using a number of IT tools and skills, which we did train a number of people in this area. Once the data is made open, how can you develop data services from it? Because what the stakeholders need, the end user, particularly for farmers and agriculture and even policymakers, they're looking for not the actual data set, but the data service and the data products. So the intermediaries help to transform this data or the data set into data services. And then we're also looking at use cases. So with the use cases, what we're saying that how can we create value from data? So the concept is that for people to have trust and people to basically make data open is when they start seeing value being created from data. And the best way to do this is to use use cases where you have usable information and knowledge. How can we transform this data into user? How can I apply that data into my context? How can that data help me in my situation? So we need to also transform. So we also trained users on how to transform data and even development of mobile applications and digital platforms. We also looked at now impact from data. Decision makers need very precise data, data services or product or from data, where you don't show them the whole data set. So in this case, what we're doing, we are coming up with simple messages, simple content from data, which can be applied particularly on farm by other policymakers. So these are basically we trained on decision-making tools and information services. How can you transform that data into information services? So like I said, we have some of the portals there. We have some of the I showed earlier. Now, this is an example where we were trying to integrate open weather data and research data. So we saw that if you integrate open weather data and research data, you are able to come up with a very critical information that you can tell a farmer when it's likely to rain, the amount of rainfall they expect, and not only the amount of rainfall they expect, what should the farmer do based on the weather forecast. So if, for example, the rain will not be sufficient, it's therefore good to tell the farmer to use maybe a certain variety, which is maybe short maturing or drought tolerant or disease tolerant in a particular area. So we are actually integrating open weather data with research data, because if you just provide data service based on weather data alone, you just have solved half of the problem. But if you can be able to have both weather data integrated with research data, then you give a complete solution. Now, this is an example where some of our team that have been trained went out to the field and jointly they were issuing advisories to farmers on animals and crop, and you can see some of the farmers there checking from their phones. They were just confirming, so they collected data georeference and agronomic advisories in a place called Machakos, where basically the idea here is to give advice based on the georeference and context-specific location of the farmer. Now, that is basically what we did. And I would just like to say, because of the training and because of the value from open data and value of data, we have some next plan which we expect to do in the next 3 to 6 months, where we want harnessed on big data, artificial intelligence, disruptive digital approaches to basically change the management of data in agriculture, and basically to facilitate also precision agriculture and the development of agricultural value chain. So these are some of the next plans we have. So in this plan, we are basically going to have a framework for big data, which we have proposed a framework for big data, actually supported by the World Bank, where we are going to have all the farmer databases in Kenya, where they live, their georeference, what value chain they engage in, what enterprise are they engaging. And we're also going to use crowdsourcing. This is basically to help maintain the database, because our farmers change, the acreage has moved, has changed the enterprise of the commodity. You need to basically get that data updated. And also for triangulation and ground truthing, so that if we say it's going to rain, we want to confirm, did it rain? If we advise you to plant a certain variety using the data set we have, did it work for you? So we are also going to use crowdsourcing where data is coming back, and also to help us use user research. Then we're going to have all the research data, all agricultural data sets from research, yield, production, all data. We also need to have data set for stakeholders where we can do pattern matching. We can also do buyer-seller matching using the data. If you know where the seller is, where all these people are, we can be able to do this. Remote sensing data using drones and Internet of Things. Real-time data collection for aerial mapping, so we can be able to map and triangulate what we're getting. Geospatial data, which is very critical because whatever we plan goes to the soil. Climate and weather data from weather stations, from satellite and other remote sensing. Market data for pricing. All this will go to the big data platform, which is high-performing computing, and we'll do a lot of simulation and modeling, data mining, machine learning algorithms. And by the end of the day, what is important is to generate advisories, which basically the market trends, agro trends, patterns, relationship. We'll give that data to policymakers, to researchers, to extension officers, stakeholders, farmers, and pastoralists. And we'll be using SMS, bullets, interactive voice response, website, radios, TV to be able to give that data. To do that, we'll be doing what we call data ingestion. How do you capture that data? How do you organize that data? How do you ensure data quality? How do you have feed management API so other system can read and can speak to this data? Exceptional handling. We'll also be doing data access layers so that data can be accessed from different layers, from agro-weather visualization. We'll do simulation and modeling. We'll have the analytic engine where we're doing the machine learning, sentinel analysis, natural language processing analysis, and all this goes to data lake. And in the data lake, we'll be having pipeline processing, workload scheduling, governance, storage, metadata catalog, and content registry. So these are some of the plan we have the next 2 to 3 months. 3 to 6 months. So we just wanted to share our experiences, the impact we have seen. Actually, Kenya's now actually gone through a data bid, which will actually help us have all some of these things basically is to implement. So that is all I had, just to come from the experience side, from the impact side, to see that the effort, the investment from GODAN and other partners are actually bearing fruit. So we could say we're a living example of what open data capacity building has done in our context.
Thank you very much, Boniface. Very impactful presentation, and thank you for sharing the work we are doing in Kenya. So may I request all the presenters to please come online now and have your mics also on, so that we can at least ask. There are so many questions coming in, and thank you for all the participants. Amazing, a lot of questions, and because of time, we won't be able to go through all the questions, but at least 1 or 2 questions I hope we can answer now, and we will do the other questions through our discussions later as well. So I want to ask one question which came in first, which is from Simpeko, who is asking how to improve the participation of African youth in open data. And I think, for Boniface's presentation was a really good way, because you already seen some real practical example of how colleagues in Africa are doing this. And maybe, Boniface and Chipo and Ike, if you can share your experience on this question on how you can improve participation of African youth and even global youth in open data.
Yes, I can start by saying that the participation of the youth is actually increasing, and we are seeing a lot of youth involvement.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start talking about digital approaches, digital tools,
mm-hmm.
Mobile apps, portals, basically you are actually enticing the youth into agriculture. So recently, I think 3 weeks ago, we had a conference, a challenge on digital, what we're calling disruptive technologies, and we saw a lot of youth coming in. So the only way to encourage the youth is to do what we call mindset change philosophy, because agriculture and nutrition are known for older people, but that's changing now. So by the moment we begin to show the world that you are able to participate in agriculture or in whatever sector using digital tools and digital technologies, we are going to attract a lot of youth. The aspect of social innovation and ICT is actually being taken up by the youth. So to encourage youth participation is to give them more opportunities. Most of the training we did, we gave the youth and women a lot of opportunities, give them more opportunities, and also make more digital approaches available. And that will attract the youth into participating to open data these days.
Thank you, Boniface. Ike and Chipo, could you please add your comments as well?
Yeah, I think we need to ensure that, we need to, Ilka, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but we do want to see more embedding of these principles, these open data skills in curricula, university curricula. I can mention one of our partners who is in Kenya, who is working on this, on what's called the student-led agriculture, student SLAE, student-led agriculture and something, I can't remember, but it's an open data initiative targeting youth who are studying in the University of Nairobi, and how we can get more curriculum on open data within their existing lectures and lessons. So that's one approach. And then also I encourage participation from the youth in the trainings like these that we offer, which are free and open. We've really been trying to push within the youth networks within CTA and FAO, and we've seen a really good representation in those who've taken part in the courses. I think we have about 30 to, I would say 40 to 50% being the youth, those between 18 and 30. So they need to take part more in these type of programs.
Thank you, Chipo. Ike, do you have anything to add, or you have any?
This was kind of a discussion that we had before, and I completely agree that I think in higher education, independently of the discipline itself, I think it should be really adapted in the curriculums.
Yeah.
The basically data management and open data, it's really part of every discipline right now.
Yes, good points, and thank you all presenters. And in fact, there are so many questions coming in, and I think we won't be, because it's already past our time, 1 hour time limit. We won't be able to take any of these questions, but we will. What we will do is we will make sure we collate the questions. And one of the questions is not a question; it's an observation I was reading. Was people are interested to get all the links of the Chipo. You showed the links of all the resources available. So it makes sense to not only share the, we will have the recording later, but also maybe share the links of all those to the capacity development working group as well as a separate email as well. So it will be helpful for those who want to know more about the courses as well as how to access the lecture materials and things like that. So we will do that. After the
so what I would suggest also, Sujit, is that we've noted down all the questions that we got. We let us respond to them as the presenters, and then we post them to the working group. So if you want to see your question answered, join the working group, and then you will receive the email with all the feedback, and then you can also respond back, what you think, or all of us can collaboratively contribute to the discussion. So let's take it to the working group, this discussion, and we do an email correspondence.
Good idea.
Yeah, great point. And as Chipo has told earlier as well, we are all about peer learning, and so please make use of the discussion groups in the capacity development to share your ideas and these questions. Most of these are wider questions which we can harness the ideas and inputs from everyone. So we will use this webinar, the questions from this webinar, to start that process. So we will continue these discussions offline through the discussions in the mailing list. I want to once again thank all our presenters, Ike, Chipo, and Boniface, for sharing for this excellent presentation and a lot of ideas they presented. And I think which is very, very important to the capacity development activities of GODAN. And I'm very grateful for all the work that GODAN Action colleagues have been doing for us. They're as you can see from the presentation today itself, you can see the impact they have already making. And the sustainable ideas they have been using, the train-the-trainer programs, the MOOCs, and all these making available it open so that it has a bigger and longer impact over many years. So we are very grateful. On behalf of the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, I will want to, on record, thank all of the work that they have done for the capacity development activities. I would also thank CTA for hosting these webinars, specifically Chipo and Chris Addison. Their help has been very helpful for us for organizing these webinars over the last few years. And I'm really grateful for all the participants of this webinar from all over the world who have joined today. Thank you all for joining the webinar, and we look forward to welcoming you to the GODAN Capacity Development Working Group and having your inputs for the future as well. So thank you all, and see you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.